So it was while you were shooting Avatar that you first heard there might be an opportunity to be in Star Trek as well?
I mean, my team at the time, they had been in conversations with J.J. Abrams, and I guess so was James Cameron. And I think I was just so into Avatar world that I was not really entertaining anything beyond that. Maybe there was an email that I overlooked from my team saying, "Hey, J.J. Abrams, Star Trek." I was like, "Star what?" And I remember Jim walks up to me one day at work and says, "I have something for you, and I think you're going to be really happy, and you're going to owe me." And then he walks away, and an hour later, J.J. Abrams shows up, and here I'm seeing like this wonderful filmmaker with Jim, and I'm like, "What's going on? And why is he smiling at me like that? Like, what's going on?" And little did I know is that he really wanted to speak to me about the role of Neo Uhura in the new Star Trek movie that he was so excitedly gonna direct, and he had written the script. So yeah, and I remember calling my mom, going, "Well, I played an INS officer that was a Trekkie, so I saw the documentaries, and I remember you used to watch Star Trek on UPN 9." And you told me about it, that you used to love Star Trek when you were a little girl, and she would see it in Dominican Republic when it was dubbed, and it was Viaje a las Estrellas. but by the time I was born, Star Trek was something that my folks would watch. I wasn't really that much into it, though I had a great deal of respect for Gene Roddenberry and just the whole community of fans of Star Trek that were generational. I mean, I'm such a sucker for rituals that involve a grandparent, a parent, and a child. I find that quite fascinating, and Star Trek kind of brought generational families together. And so I sat down with JJ. He told me about Star Trek and what he was intending to do, and I acted as if I knew everything that he was saying. But I just went home, and I remember I took Neytiri off for a minute, and that whole weekend I just saw so many shows of Star Trek and documentaries and interviews about Gene Roddenberry and about Nichelle Nichols. I needed to understand if I was going to embody this character that this wonderful actress had done so well. What was it about her that I was going to take on? And what was it about Nyota Uhura that I can give myself the freedom to be nuanced about? So I remember I spoke to JJ about that, and I said, I don't. What if I fail? What if I don't do a great job of that everybody's expecting me to do? I don't want to step into someone else's shoes if they've done it so well. And so he invited Nichelle to set, and meeting her was incredible. I remember she was so sexy and just so confident and such a rebel. I don't know. She's sitting right next to me, and everything that she would do, she would talk to JJ like this, and I would kind of go, and she would whip her hair, and I wanted to be Nichelle.
Well, it's amazing to think that, let's talk about your 2009, because Avatar shot first, but Star Trek came out first on May 8th, 2009. That was a big deal for the whole summer. Then on December 18th, 2009, Avatar comes out, and, everybody knew it's the guy who made Titanic. It's probably going to find an audience, but I don't know if even you would have imagined how massive that audience was. $2.7 billion worldwide, making it the highest grossing film of all time. Also, obviously all kinds of conversations about 3D and VFX, and just like right at the cutting edge, nominated for the Best Picture Oscar, and certainly brought you to the largest audience that you would have ever had, or anyone had clearly had in a movie up to that point. I guess I wonder if you remember what you were doing that weekend when it came out, and really like probably watching in real time, like as your life permanently changed.
I think the very first weekend that Avatar came out, it wasn't a big splash. We were expecting, Flight of the Concord, like we were expecting something to be. This was a movie that just grew gradually. Every weekend, the numbers just kept doubling and tripling, and all this momentum just kept growing, and it was because people had seen it, and then they would come back and bring friends and bring family members and just see it for a second, third time. And it became a really special experience for people. I wasn't expecting that. I just kept, every weekend I was like, what? But so and so opened. Like we've been out there for 2 months, and it just kept, sorry, tonight I'm a little off. My English
No, this is
has left the
good.
building. I'm trying to get it back, you guys. So at one point I'm gonna need a translator. Um,
It's all
it
good.
was it was a surreal experience, and I don't know if that I was too young and I was just too innocent, and innocence can sometimes be blissful. I was just taking it as it all came, and I was happy to just be a part of it. I was happy to be alive. I was happy to have worked with James Cameron, and I remember feeling hungry too, like what's next?
Well, I was going to ask
You know?
how early on did you know that there would be multiple? Like, did you know when you signed up for the first one that there was going to be additional installments?
I mean, when you sign up for these films, and studios and filmmakers are quite hopeful for their projects, they tend to lock you in for multiple, for sequels. I'd made that contract with them, but not really knowing what I was doing. I was 27. I moving to Hollywood for the very first time, booking Avatar. I remember when the movie came out, and I think we were in London, and the success of it was just hitting us in stride. Jim looked at me and said, I already know what we're going to do for the sequel.
Wow.
And that made me almost cry, because it's so funny that he had said that, because in that moment, I was kind of sad, thinking I'll never go back to Pandora again. And he was already there. He was like, "Oh no, no, no! I'm not even
Little
here.
did
I'm
you
already
know.
there." Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that even though you've done these massive, massive movies, you've also continued to intersperse with them these more indie, or sometimes art house, smaller scale, passion projects. One of them I think we should talk about is Colombiano, which you brought up. And I wonder if you can just share, I guess this would have been your first solo lead of a movie, right? Why was that something that at the, you know, at the moment your career is exploding, you wanted to make sure you were doing?
Well, why not?
No, no, I'm for sure.
Yeah, it's. I feel like that's more the question that I was asking myself. Why not? And there's just something about the lone wolf, that just speaks to me, and
Should we just stop here? So, young girl who witnessed her parents murder and grows up to become an assassin.
yeah.
Sorry, please.
Una sicaria. But the Femme Nikita kind of film genre I've always loved. I also saw a film called Leon, the Professional, that moved me in such a way. And when I saw Nikita, his earlier work, I loved. If I have to be personal about it, I think I've always been trying to understand and manage my grief. My loss, losing my father at such an early age, has probably been the most impactful thing that has happened to me up until now. when the unimaginable happens and you're too young to understand, you will process it forever. And these characters, I've played certain characters throughout my career where we are tackling that. You know, first it was in Colombiana, and then I did a mini series for Netflix called From Scratch, where I wanted to understand for Colombiana because it happened to her when she was so young, and she felt so many emotions at such intense degrees that I was really curious about them. And then I was also wondering, I'm like, should I have felt that grief in that intense way? Because I know I didn't. I found solace in so many things around me, but Cataleya didn't. So I really dove deep into her world. And then when I played Amy and From Scratch, it was more about trying to understand what my mother went through when she lost her partner. I know what life was like losing a father, but I never knew what it was like for her losing the love of her life. And by playing this woman, it gave me a deeper understanding of what her journey must have been like. So I am constantly trying to heal myself through the work that I do.
It's really interesting. Thank you. We are going to now take a look at Zoe in Star Trek and Colombiana.